Hey Geek, so a little while back, I made a video about the AtGames Legends Ultimate Arcade, specifically their brand new firmware at the time, which was 5.70. And unfortunately, with that release, well, there were problems, specifically with One Sauce and even CoinOpsX. And for most people, that is the main reason why they got this arcade cabinet. That is the reason why I got it. Even though there are 300 games in here, having things like CoinOpsX and One Sauce with potentially thousands of games just really makes this the best arcade unit out there. And so today I wanted to make an update video on some questions that I've seen quite regularly on the comment section. And I will say that I have not updated my firmware. It is still on version 5.68. And so the first question is probably going to be the one that's asked most often, and that is, has AtGames fix the problem? Well, going to AtGames page in their release notes, I haven't seen an update since September. So the last time they made an update was concerning version 5.71, which is an opt-in update, and you actually have to contact AtGames to get that update. And there has not been any updates since then. So basically there hasn't been a fix as far as I know. And then the second question is, can you go back to previous firmware? Now on AtGames site, they do say that you could do a reset and go back to a previous version. And for some people, they're able to download the old firmware. And I'm not sure exactly where they get that, but I have heard mixed things. A lot of people that I heard have said that going back to an old firmware does not fix the problem. But some people say doing that does fix the problem. And I myself don't know because I haven't done any of that. So this is like mixed. For a lot of people, it seems like it doesn't work, but for some people, it say it does work. And then the third question is, if you are on old firmware like I am, can you still install CoinOpsX from the App Store? And in this case, I don't know. I don't have my internet on, and I don't really want to connect to their services. But in general, I'm thinking the App Store is controlled by AtGames. So my guess is, even if you are on older firmware, if the App Store or App Store is controlled by AtGames, then there is a very likely chance that they could delist CoinOpsX even if you are on old firmware. And so if you have heard something different, be sure to leave it in the comments area below. And then the fourth question concerns One Sauce. Will One Sauce work with new firmware? Now, initially, whenever they rolled this out, One Sauce was broken for a lot of people. And since then, I have heard some people that says One Sauce works. And for some people, they said some games works, but some games don't. So once again, I really do not know because I have not updated my own hardware. But in this case, I think the majority of people, that's where they had the most problems was with One Sauce if they had it installed. And then for some people, they didn't have any issues at all or very few issues. So in this case, more had problems versus people who didn't have problems. And then the fifth question is, does the HDMI input still work with the latest firmware? Now, I can't really say whether or not this thing will have any problems, but as far as I have seen, I haven't seen major reports of people having problems with the HDMI port. And that is kind of like a workaround. If you still wanted to play like CoinOpsX or other emulation or other front ends, you could always plug in a different device into the HDMI input. And as far as I know, it still works regardless of which firmware that you have. And so hopefully that's still the case in the future. And then the sixth question is, will I ever update from my firmware 5.68? At this point, I don't intend to update my firmware ever until they actually release something that is better and that doesn't break functionality that I currently have. And so for my machine, I don't have it connected to the internet. Obviously, I don't log in because everything works the way that I want. And I definitely don't want to make an update that actually breaks my AtGames Legends arcade machine. And so simple answer is no, but that doesn't mean I won't update in the future, depending on whether or not it fixes the problems and add enhancements that actually make this machine better. And so the last question I had was, is there a better alternative to the Legends Ultimate Arcade? Well, at this point, I would say no. For the price that you're paying, with all the features that you get and the build quality, this is still the best value out there, even if you take away CoinOpsX or One Sauce, especially when you compare it against other competitors like Arcade 1-Up. And about the only exception to that is if you have experience building arcade machines, then potentially you could build a way better machine than this at a lower price or close to the same price as you would pay here. But that is my update today to the AtGames Legends Ultimate Arcade. In general, really not anything that's great to report in terms of it being fixed. And for anybody out there who's looking for an arcade machine that could do all of these things, right now I would say you might want to wait a little bit longer just to see whether or not there's some fixes that come later. And more than likely, it's probably not going to come from AtGames, but it might come from the CoinOpsX or One Sauce community, and hopefully that is the case so that people can really get the full benefits of this arcade machine. So if you actually had any thoughts on this, be sure to leave in the comments here below. And if you did want to see my previous videos on this firmware update, I will leave links to that in the description area below.
For serious YouTubers, check out TubeBuddy, the premier tool news at geekoutdoors.com. Get more done today by checking out the affiliate link in the description area below.